Now the next one to come out is this main input shaft. That actually feels quite stiff on the bearings, and on a inspection looking down inside, the gears are rooted. So we'll pop it out, we'll have a look. It's okay, it just has an oil seal there. Okay, what do we got holding all this lot in? I'd say the gears inside are all keyed to the shaft, so it's a matter of grabbing hold of this and pulling it that way. So there's our three our input gears. You probably won't pick up the damage on the teeth. Now these must be keyed to the shaft. There's no circlips or anything I can see here, so what we'll do is we'll set up and we'll pull on the end of the shaft, and it should leave all these behind. So just looking at the parts breakdown, this is the shaft we're talking about. These are the gears that are on the shaft. No circlips. It's just everything's keyed to the shaft, so that if we grab hold of that thread on the end, we eject the shaft out the end, we'll leave all these the gear spacer, gear bearing, we'll leave them behind, and then we can just lift these out. So I'll get set up and we'll get a puller arrangement on the end of the shaft. Okay, using one of my milling machine clamps, put that over there. We'll just screw the nut on, a couple of threads, and a couple of the stepped packers for the clamp. So we tighten that up using my OGL brand imitation snap-on ratchet. Okay, and I'm going to have to get a pair of multi-grips or something in there to stop this shaft from turning. Let me see what I've got. Grab hold of it around the gear. Something's moving. Let me just back that off and just check. Okay, the bearings. It's all moving inside, but it started getting tight. Okay, let's just try again. Just give it a bit more welly. Oh. Yeah, when things get tight you really need to stop and have a look, make sure there's nothing obvious going on. So you don't want to do damage to other parts. I can't see anything. I can hear something. Okay, I'm just going to come in with a punch and tap the end of that shaft because I don't like the way that's loading up. So I'll come in through this hole where we've got the other one out with our bent punch. Making sure I'm hitting on the end of the shaft. And I'm not liking that at all. Okay, so let's slacken this off. Pull these out. Just give this a tap with the hammer just to sand it back in again. That's it. So I can have a look from the top. I'm not seeing any reason why this shouldn't slip out, but it's getting very tight. Okay, well I don't know why it got tight, but it's tight, but it's coming, so we'll get her out. Okay, out of travel on our nut. So we need to put some thicker packers in. Let me see what I can find. I'll tell you what, these milling machine clamps make good pullers. Okay, I think we're there. And sealant. This bearing is tight. Where are we? This one here. It should be a lot freer than that. The shaft looks good, keys look good. So we should be able to pluck the gears out from the inside. Spacer. The other gear. So we'll have a look at the teeth on these. So if we have a look at the smallest gear, you can see on these markings on the teeth, that's bits coming out. Now these are a soft, normally you get that on a hardened gear. These are a pretty soft gear, these. So yeah, they do have some somewhere. It's not a big issue at this stage. It will be an issue later on. Yeah, you can see the material starting to break up. So what we'll do, we'll still continue with our plan. We'll put the bearings in, we'll put all these gears back in, and at a later date, I think I'll give this machine probably another, see how we're travelling in another 2 years, and drop all these back out, and I might remake another gear set for them. And what I'll do, there's plenty of room in this headstock, I'll see if I can't make the gears slightly wider, and see how that goes. It gives them more face to bear on, and we can also harden them as well. So that's a future project if we get that far further in a couple of years' time. So yeah, the shaft's all good. Yeah, this bearing is very stiff. So we'll continue on. So the other gears we've got to get out are these ones beneath the spindle. Now last time I had the headstock cover off this lathe, I put this other magnet down the bottom, and you can see there's a bit of furry debris on there. Well, that'll be what's come off that little gear we were looking at earlier on. So initially I had no intentions whatsoever to pull the spindle out. But I might actually do that now just to gain better access to the insides, so I can get in behind these gears underneath there, so we can get the gears out and replace the bearings. So that's our Delrin stopper we were using as a temporary spider when we had some long stock hanging out. That doesn't need to be in there. Pop these out, and should just be a cover. Yeah, so later on down the track, looks like we've got a heap of gears to cut and harden. It should be an interesting project. If I had an apprentice then, I could get him to do it. Okay, it's just a cover. Just set our screws back in so they don't get mixed up with other ones or lost. Has a gasket around it too, so we'll leave that intact. One good way to check your on-taper roller bearing on your machine, if you suspect you've lost a bit of preload in your bearings, is to have a look at the rollers. See, I can't stop them from moving, and they're all rotating. I'll bring them in closer. So as I rotate the headstock, all of those rollers are turning So you got to look on the top where there's no weight on them. And also if you hold the headstock still, I can't push them around either. If they were loose, I'd be able to turn this whole cage assembly. So the adjuster is just the split nut. So it's just a matter of slackening off this cap screw, and the nut has a slit in it. It pinches up on the thread and locks it in place. So let's get that off. I'll just pull our chuck off first. I'll do that off camera, as it will make it a bit more unsightly to handle. And then we better pop this plate off the front as well. Now before I slacken this nut off, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put a scribe line down the nut, and also a corresponding one on the spindle. Just as a point of reference for when we're doing it back up. So these get slackened off. Just use our chuck key in the nose of the spindle to stop it rotating. They have to come right out, they've only got to be loosened. I'm just counting to see how much the spindle moves. It should move about one rotation, free rotation on a spin. This is I'll mark the front of the texture. And yeah, we're getting one rotation, it's not going further. This seems pretty standard. So we use our special spanner. And that's our adjuster nut off. Sorry, I forgot to hit record then. So we've just taken the cap screws out of this plate. Possibly it's just like a labyrinth type seal under this plate, so there'll be grooves around the spindle. Same with the rear of the spindle. That's what these grooves here are for. It's a labyrinth seal, and there's actually a corresponding groove with a drain in it on the end cover, so the oil migrates across, hits these grooves and drops down. So we have to remove this circlip here, and then we can slide the whole spindle out. It's got it. Okay. Right, I think we can tap all this out now as an assembly. So I'm just supporting the weight of the front of the spindle, so we're tapping on this rear bearing squarely. And it pops. So that's the end tailstock bearing, the end spindle bearing. Keyway, so just dropped. There's a gear. Our circlip. Another gear. There's another big gear inside. Main drive gear. And our spindle. Okay. Set that safely out the way there. You can see that I've had some crap go through them. They're actually not in bad condition. We'll have a bit of a clean up and we'll have a really close look at these. Okay, looking in through the hole where the spindle used to be, that gives us good access now for these two gears here. So this one here is no bearing, it's just a circlip. We'll pop that circlip off, pull the gear off. That'll give us good access to get to this one because there are ball bearings on this assembly here. And how do we know that? We know it because we consulted our parts breakdown. So that's the first one. We pop that circlip off. That'll allow this gear assembly to come out, and it just runs on a plain shaft. There's no bearing. And these are the two bearings we're after here on the other one. So once we've got this out of the way, we can pop this gear assembly off the shaft or pull the shaft or figure it out when we get to it. Okay, here's a good shot of the front spindle bearing. You can see all those radial lines that are around it. And it is starting to catch my thumbnail. Now that's caused by all the shit and debris that's inside these headstocks when they're not cleaned out from brand new. And the rear headstock bearing is the same. I would actually run this one again in this lathe, bearing in mind the condition of the gears that are going to go back into it. But when I'm down at the bearing supplier, I will price them up and see if they're available. If they're not too badly priced and they have them in stock, I will consider changing them. Anyway, let's get on to our mission at hand, and that's to remove this circlip, pop this off and remove this. That's right, drop the bloody thing. Okay, that's our circlip, and this gear should just slide straight off the shaft. Okay, and there's a bronze bearing inside the gear, and something you've got to be wary of. A little thrust washer too behind it. Okay, that's the circlip. Now this should pop straight off here. Okay, we're going to hit. Okay, that's okay. We're hitting our. I'll swing around to a different angle. Okay, we're hitting this part here with the gear so it won't slide off, but the gear is now free on the shaft. So what we can do is we can undo these 3 cap screws and pull the shaft out that way. I'm just going to tap it through with a brass drift. And it's starting to move. Housing off the bearing. We'll keep tapping through from the other side. Okay. So yeah, they're the other 2 bearings we have to, actually they feel quite good. We'll change them anyway. Right, well that's that one out now and disassembled. So it's only these 2 ball races here. So that's nothing too technical. So everything appears to be alright there, so we'll replace the oil seal. And yeah, of course the 2 ball races. So that's as far as we're going to go into this. Let's have a look at these other gears. So everything that's come out of the headstock appears to be in relatively good condition, except for these 2 gears here, which we'll get a close-up of in a minute. So all I have to do now is I'll go down to the local bearing supplier and we'll match up the bearings that we need. The ball races won't be a problem. I'll get a price and availability on spindle bearings while I'm there, while it's apart. if push comes to shove, these can be reused. So let's have a close-up of this smaller gear set. So this is a small gear set off the main input drive. So they are showing signs of wear on the tooth faces across the middle of the teeth there, where they appear to be starting to break up. So I'll check on the availability, or more likely the unavailability, of these gears here, and I'll take a couple of drawings of them, because I might make 2 new ones up later on down the track, and we'll go from there. So I'll either I'll go 30E and 36A and get them case hardened, or just make them out of pre-hard 4140, which means I've got to get 2 different sizes of pre-hard bar to make sure I stay in the pre-hard zone section of the material. As it gets softer, pre-hard is only hard for a certain depth. If I go E and 36A, it may make the gears too hard and start wearing into the other gears, so that's something got to be a bit wary of. So across that bridge, I'll think about that one, and I will also have to order a gear cutter to cut the teeth. Well, yeah, that's as far as we can go with this at the moment, this repair, until the bearing shops open up in the new year. So as I said, we'll get some bearings, and I'll make some drawings of those 2 other smaller gears and look into remanufacturing the gear set there. So anyway, well, I hope you all survived the New Year festivities okay. I know I pulled up a bit shabby the next day. We made it through to midnight. So anyway, cheers. Have a great New Year, or as good as you can, depending on your circumstances, and we'll see you in the next video.